We get a beautiful gospel to reflect on this evening. Jesus tells us the great commandments to love God above all else and to love our neighbor as himself. Easier said than done, I would think, from my own experience. Maybe you can relate. Most of us might be familiar with that song by Hadaway, "What is Love? Baby, Don't Hurt Me." That was on my mind when I was praying through this gospel, and I thought, well, sometimes love does hurt. So we might think that love, we don't want it to hurt, but love is intrinsically linked to sacrifice. So every time that we come into a church, we're reminded of that truth because we gaze upon the cross, and that's the perfect expression of God's love for us. He shed his own blood for us. That's sacrifice, real sacrifice. Simple definition of love is to will the good of the other. So it's something about our will. It's an intentional step. Just a couple days ago was Halloween. I had the opportunity of being with some of my family. I went to my sister's home, and she's got two little ones. Her newest son is just 3 months old, and life is really full for her home right now. So I asked her, "Amanda, how you doing?" She said, "I'm an exhausted mother, but I'm doing okay." And saw this smile on her, but I could see there's a gift of her life, her and her husband right now with the fullness of family life. And I had the opportunity of trick-or-treating with them and then getting some of the candy and coming back and seeing their little one, Lydia, who's 2 years old, eating candy after candy after candy. And then I got to go home, and they had to put her to bed. And so there wasn't sacrifice on my part, but there was, I'm sure, in that household. But to love requires this sacrifice that, they've been up in the middle of the night with their newborn infant. Something's drawn from them. It's hard. It requires a little bit of blood in the game. Like, it hurts. It hurts to love, hurts to give of ourselves. This truth is something we know as Christians. It's kind of the core. To love is to come outside of ourselves, to lay down ourselves in imitation of what God has done for us. This gospel really taps into the entire truth of the law of the Jews. It's really beautiful. So we sometimes might think of the Old Testament and all those laws. There's 614 of the Levitical laws, and the Jews, they tried to practice these well. But even in Jesus' time, they knew that the essence of all these laws is love, to love God above all else and to love your neighbor as yourself. Because this scribe, he asked Jesus, "What's the greatest of the commandments?" And Jesus responds in this way, and he doesn't say, I've never heard that before. He knows. So this fulfillment of those laws that were in the Old Testament really point to it is about love. It's about laying down our life for the other, putting God first. Now, it can seem easy, and as we say it in the context, put God first, put our neighbor second. But it can be easy to not do that, to let other things take center stage. In my own life, we really have to choose. I have to choose again and again the Lord, to put him first. Because other things, even good things, but if they're not the Lord, they can't be at the center. But sometimes they kind of sneak in. Even like it's a good thing for me to take a nap and to rest after a full day. But if that becomes the most important thing of my day, then it's kind of co-opted. Actually, the Lord has to be at the center. He's got to be the rock. He's got to be the foundation. I love that first reading from the letter to the Hebrews. Talks about Jesus and his priesthood. And it gives a really profound promise. If you caught it, it says that those who approach Jesus will always be saved. This is how it says. It says, "He is always able to save those who approach God through him, since he lives to make intercession for them." It's a pretty strong promise. He's always able to save those who approach God through him. So the question is, if it's that easy, why isn't everybody saved? I think it's because we don't always approach God through him. We kind of lose steam along the way. The daily choices of love actually are hard to make. But love keeps us on the track. Lord, I choose you. I actually want to approach. I know that this promise is for me. You're always able to save those who approach God through you because you live to intercede for us. But it's the choice. Lord, I choose. I choose to put you first. I choose to love you above all else, my mind, heart, strength. Jesus says we have to love him with our strength. So it's not like an easy thing. It requires sacrifice, requires the spiritual muscles, spiritual push-ups maybe, to stretch us. Like I have to choose you, Lord, even when it's hard, when it's difficult. But it's possible because God loves us first. He gives us that opportunity, that grace. He always beats us to the punch. My favorite letters is the letter of 1 John, and he explains so clearly that we love because he first loved us. So the stage that we live in as Christians is one of response. We make a response to a God who's already loved us. So we do have to respond. It's in our freedom, our will. He loved us first, allows us to love. And as we continue to make those steps of putting God first, loving him with our whole mind, heart, soul, strength, our neighbor as ourselves, it allows us to tap into that promise that Jesus is always able to save those who approach him with living faith, with living love. So as we come to the altar is a place of sacrifice. This is what we celebrate in the Mass. The gift, the supreme sacrifice of Jesus given to us, handed over for us, his body given, his blood poured out. So we have the opportunity of saying, Lord, I sacrifice myself. I give myself to you. I make a choice. Love is a choice to say, I'm in for this adventure of life, this adventure of love with you. And he's able to meet us there and to give us the strength, the food for the journey.